a witch board, a talking board, and most notably known as the Ouija board. Now, you've probably heard of this quote-unquote famous sleepover game, but is it really a game? And is it really as evil as a lot of people believe it to be? Well, on today's episode, we are going to be deep diving into the strange and abnormal history of the Ouija board. Now, before we get into this crazy history about how the Ouija board came to be as we know it today, if you have ever played a Ouija board, leave it in the comments below. Let's go ahead and get right into the video. It all started on March 31st, 1848 with sisters Kate and Margaret Fox, who decided to contact a deceased male who would pass in their home. Now, during this contact, they would actually communicate with this person using what is known as the knocking method. And you've probably heard it, and people use it in investigations to this day. But basically what it is they would ask a series of questions, yes or no questions, and in order for the spirit to answer yes or no, they would ask their question and say knock once for yes or twice for no, or vice versa. And anytime that they would hear one knock or two knocks, it would signal that that question was answered yes or no. Now, this initial contact was so successful, they were so excited. They literally couldn't contain it, so they decided to literally tell everybody they knew. Obviously, you have people who are going to believe them, and you have some who are not. This was a pretty monumental moment in this time, and it would actually spark the start of what is known as spiritualism. Now, you're probably wondering, what even is spiritualism? You might have never heard of it, but don't worry, because I am here to give you the Google definition of it. Spiritualism is a movement of beliefs that spirits of those that have passed on can communicate with the living that rose to popularity in the 19th century. Now, it is said that the Fox sisters were complete hoaxes, like they weren't real, they couldn't really communicate with the spirits as they said they were. It was completely made up. Now, it is not 100% certain that this was completely faked, but there are definitely a lot of theories and people who believe that they completely faked it. Now, I'm not saying if it's completely true or not, obviously. I'm gonna leave that up to you guys. Now, in the year of 1861, a lot of families sadly got separated, and they had to say goodbye to their loved ones. And unfortunately, some of those goodbyes would be the last, because this was the beginning of one of the most brutalist wars in American history, also known as the Civil War. When you lose someone you loved, and sometimes you maybe didn't get to say goodbye to them face to face, you want that chance to. So this is why spiritualism rose so much during this time, because people wanted to contact their loved ones one last time. Not only did it gain popularity during and after the Civil War, it also peaked again, and you guessed it, World War I in the 1910s. Now, during the height of spiritualism, many people would use seances to contact their past loved ones. And they would participate in these typically with most notably a woman who possessed supernatural abilities. And there were different techniques used during these seances to contact those spirits and those people who have passed on. One of the couple techniques that we are going to be talking about is table tipping. Now, table tipping is when you get like a group of people. Typically, you are with your medium. You will sit at a table, hold your hand, and kind of like call out, and then the table would actually soon to move and tip around. One of the other methods that they would use is alphabet calling. Now, you've probably also heard of alphabet calling, and it is still used to this day. But now, what is alphabet calling? Basically, you are asking the spirit that you are trying to contact during one of these seances. You will call out the alphabet A to Z. And anytime do you hear specifically a knock or a noise on certain letters, you will then write down that letter during that knock that you would hear when saying said letter. And then you will keep repeating it until it maybe spells out a word, a name, or even a whole sentence. And this was a very popular method. Obviously, it probably took a long time to constantly go through the whole alphabet until you heard it, and sometimes you wouldn't hear anything. So then you would have to then go through it again. One of the other popular methods used was called automatic writing, and you've probably seen, actually specifically like a lot of mediums using it to this day. You've probably seen it in some paranormal investigation videos. You've probably seen in some of your favorite videos on YouTube. So this is where a medium would go into a trance-like state to connect with spirit, typically while holding a pen and a paper in their hand. Sometimes it would be words, letters, shapes, or just something to maybe connect with what the spirit is saying. Now, a man by the name Alan Cardiac, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, he was a French spiritualist in the 1850s, and he actually had a very good idea during one of his seances with one of his clients to taking like a small cup or like a small like little basket and poking a pencil through it onto a piece of paper and putting your hand on top of it and then moving it around or waiting for the spirit to help you move it around to make it easier for the spirit to kind of communicate instead of using any of these other methods. And that would actually kind of push the idea. Combining all of these techniques really inspired one or two people to create what is known as the Ouija board as we know it as today. Now, the original spirit board, talking board, witch board, and something kind of cool that I found out is that actually these boards and these methods of these boards were very, very popular in actually Cleveland, Ohio, which I found really, really interesting. Then there were two men that were credited as being the inventors of the Ouija board, but one a little bit more than the other one. Now, the first one, his name was E.C. Reich. I'm not exactly sure if I'm saying that right. Hopefully I am. He was actually a cabinet and coffee maker. And then the next one that is a little bit more notably known as being the creator of the Ouija board is Charles Kennard. Now, he was a businessman living out of Maryland. Now, the board, before it got the name as the Ouija board, it was actually more notably known as a talking board. He had actually met up with one of his lawyers, Elijah Bond. And in April of 1890, Bond and Kennard had actually met up with his sister-in-law, Helen. And now Helen was kind of known as a medium in the area. They would all meet up and they would sit down and have their own seance. During this, they would actually get an answer. And the board spelled out the name Ouija, O-U-I-G-A. And obviously they had no idea what this word meant. So why not ask the board that question? What does Ouija mean? And it actually means good luck. I don't know if you can necessarily call it a good luck board, but I guess in a way it decided it is a good luck board. So after the seance, Elijah Bond actually takes the now what is known as the Ouija board down to Washington, D.C. to be patented. Now, when he took it to be patented, he actually talked to the chief clerk there. And this guy did not believe in this at all. But they came to a deal. The chief clerk said, if the board can spell out my name, we can go ahead and get your idea patented. So, what did they do? They sat down, opened the Ouija board, started playing it, and what do you know? It spelled out this guy's name. When you get something patented, you actually have to explain how said product works. And if you actually look it up, it is claimed that they knew that it worked, but they don't know how. That's kind of crazy. I mean, honestly, how? We don't even really know. So now the Ouija board is promoted as a family-friendly game that can predict the past, present, and the future. Now, fast forward to 1882, where William Fuld, he became supervisor of the company to go ahead and manufacture the Ouija boards. So he wanted to know where to, build these warehouses for his new company. So what did he do? He went to the Ouija board. He wanted to know where the board wanted to, be manufactured. And the board spelled out Baltimore. So what did he do? They went ahead and headed on up to Baltimore. So now we're going to get into the really crazy part of the story. One day up on the roof, William is up there and he is inspecting a new flagpole that is going to be installed in. And you're not just going to stand there, have your arms crossed. We like to do a little lean. Us Americans like to lean a little bit. So what does he do? He leans onto a support beam. Unfortunately, this support beam gives way and he actually begins to fall off of the roof of this building. As he's falling, he luckily had actually grabbed onto an open windowsill and he tried to pull himself up. But as he was doing so, the window had actually closed on him and he had then begun to descend down to the ground. Now, as he hit the ground, he actually got really lucky and he only broke a rib. Obviously, he probably fractured some things, had a lot of bruising and whatnot, but him probably grabbing onto that windowsill actually broke his fall a little bit. But I'm not even to the crazy part yet. Obviously, ambulance was called. They got him strapped in on the way to the hospital. Now, on the way to the hospital, the ambulance had hit a bump. Like I said, he had broken ribs. Sadly, one of his ribs, after they went over the bump, had actually punctured his heart, and he died on the way to the hospital. So this guy got so lucky just until the very end. I don't believe in coincidences, but this is really, really strange to me. Helen Peters herself had actually invested into the company, and after William's passing, she, I believe, inherited it or something along the lines of that. So one day, Helen, one of her Vivian heirlooms had gone missing. She didn't know who took it. She didn't know where it went. So the only logical thing to do was to ask the Ouija board. So she asked the Ouija board and had actually told her who it was. It was a family member. Now, she obviously confronted them and, told the whole family about it. And, some did believe her and some didn't. On Helen's deathbed, some of her last words were actually about the Ouija board. And she said to never play it, that this board is evil and it pulls families apart. And here's the crazy part. You can actually go see the first ever patent Ouija board at the Witchboard Museum in Salem, Massachusetts. Now, I absolutely adore this museum. It was on the top of my bucket list when I went to go visit Salem last year. It's literally it's $10 to get in. The guy who owns it, his name is John. He actually collects Ouija boards. He has hundreds of Ouija boards in there. He is actually part of the Paranormal Historic Society, but you can actually see the first ever patent Ouija board. You can actually read about the Ouija board's history and its crazy story at the museum itself. You can actually talk to John about it. And if you have your own paranormal Ouija board horror story, you can tell him. He has people coming from all around the world just to talk to this guy and tell him about their own horror stories. So I'm now recording on my phone because my camera keeps overheating and I'm almost done. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Obviously, if you did and you got to the end of it, if you have any Ouija board stories, please leave them in the comments below. I would absolutely adore and love to read them. I absolutely love hearing about people's own experiences. You know what? My lemonade is kind of popping off over there. I had a post several months ago, literally just asking if people believed, and I have several comments about people either believing in spirits or not, their own experiences, why they do or do not. Absolutely love it. It's my favorite thing to read. I adore it. I would absolutely love to do a series on here where you guys send in your own personal stories and I can read them, because everyone's experience is completely different. Or, you go to a place, people are like, oh my God, I've had that same experience. Oh my gosh, it's probably the same spirit, stuff like that. Why you believe, why you don't believe. I would absolutely love for you guys to send stuff in that, comment. So obviously, comment, subscribe. Bye.